Welcome to Daily Dharma Listening, a quiet space where ancient echoes meet the restless rhythm of modern life. Imagine this moment as a small clearing in a dense forest. You have stepped out of the noise not to escape the world, but to see it more clearly. This series is not about distant temples or unreachable ideals. It is about you, here, now, breathing, thinking, feeling, searching. It is about how Buddhist teachings, born thousands of years ago, still whisper practical guidance into the most ordinary moments of our days. Many people come to Buddhism for beginners with a simple question that hides a deeper ache. How do I live without being constantly pulled apart by worry, fear, and endless wanting? Ancient Buddhist wisdom does not answer this by promising a perfect life. Instead, it offers something more subtle and more powerful. It teaches us how to stay calm and positive even when circumstances refuse to cooperate. It teaches us how to find peace in chaos, not by controlling the chaos, but by understanding our relationship to it. Picture a crowded train during rush hour. Everyone is pressed together, shoulders tight, eyes fixed on glowing screens. Someone bumps into you. Instantly, irritation arises. This moment is small, almost invisible, yet it contains an entire universe of habit. Buddhism gently asks us to notice this instant. Where did the irritation come from? Did the stranger place it inside you, or did it arise from a long-trained reflex of the mind? This is the beginning of how we transform your mind, not through force, but through seeing clearly. The Buddha often spoke about suffering not as punishment, but as information. Anxiety, fear, restlessness, and dissatisfaction are messages. They tell us that we are clinging to something unstable. Buddhist lessons for anxiety do not ask us to suppress anxious thoughts or pretend we are calm. Instead, they invite us to sit beside our anxiety like a curious friend. When anxiety says, "Something is wrong," Buddhism asks, "What are you holding on to that cannot be held?" In our modern world, fear has become a constant background noise. Fear of falling behind. Fear of being judged. Fear of not being enough. To live without fear, in the Buddhist sense, does not mean erasing fear from existence. It means no longer allowing fear to dictate every choice. When fear arises, we learn to recognize it as a passing weather pattern, not as the sky itself. This subtle shift is revolutionary. Ancient Buddhist teachings remind us again and again that the mind is both the source of suffering and the doorway to freedom. The same mind that creates stories of failure can also learn to rest in presence. The same mind that replays regrets can learn to listen to the simple rhythm of the breath. This is not mystical or abstract. It is profoundly practical. When you wash dishes, walk to work, or wait in line, you are training the mind either toward agitation or toward clarity. To protect your energy in a world that constantly demands attention, Buddhism does not tell you to build walls or withdraw from life. It teaches discernment. Not every thought deserves belief. Not every emotion requires action. When you stop feeding every mental impulse, something unexpected happens. Space appears. In that space, you begin to sense a quieter form of happiness, one that does not depend on praise, success, or constant stimulation. Many people feel lost without being able to explain why. You might have a job, relationships, and plans, yet still feel unanchored. Buddhist reminders when you feel lost often point back to one simple truth. You are not lost in life. You are lost in thought. The moment attention returns to direct experience, to the feeling of the body, To the sound of the present moment, the sense of being lost softens. Direction does not come from thinking harder. It comes from seeing more clearly. This series will explore these ideas slowly, patiently, like a river carving stone over time. Each part will stand on its own, offering a unique reflection you can return to whenever life feels heavy or confusing. If these reflections resonate with you, consider gently supporting this space by subscribing to Daily Dharma Listening, liking this video, or sharing it with someone who might need a moment of calm today. Not as an obligation, but as a quiet gesture of connection. As we begin this journey together, remember this. Buddhism is not asking you to become someone else. It is inviting you to stop running from who you already are. In the stillness beneath your habits, fears, and hopes, there is a natural clarity waiting to be rediscovered. In the next part, we will take one step deeper into that clarity, not by reaching outward, but by turning gently inward. In the quiet hours before dawn, when the world has not yet decided what it will become, there is a subtle truth moving through everything. Nothing stays as it is. The air cools, the light shifts, thoughts arise and dissolve before we can hold them. Ancient Buddhist teachings return to this truth again and again, not to unsettle us, but to free us. Impermanence is not a threat. It is an invitation to loosen our grip. Most suffering in modern life does not come from pain itself, but from our resistance to change. We cling to moments we want to last, and we fight against moments we wish would disappear. Buddhist wisdom gently reveals that both movements are the same habit of the mind. When we demand permanence from a world that is constantly flowing, tension becomes inevitable. Understanding this is one of the most compassionate Buddhist lessons for anxiety, because it shifts the question from how do I control my life to how do I meet life as it actually is. Imagine holding a cup of water in your hands. If you squeeze too tightly, the water spills. If you refuse to hold it at all, it falls away. The middle way taught by the Buddha is not passive and not forceful. It is attentive. In daily life, this might look like caring deeply about your work without letting it define your worth, or loving someone fully without demanding they remain unchanged. This balance is how we begin to live without fear, even in uncertain times. For many people exploring Buddhism for beginners, impermanence sounds unsettling at first. We are taught to seek stability, to build something solid we can rely on forever. Yet when we look closely, we see that nothing we depend on is truly fixed. Bodies age. Relationships evolve. Success arrives and leaves. The Buddha did not point this out to make us hopeless. He pointed it out to show us where hope does not need to depend on fragile conditions. When you truly see impermanence, something softens inside. The mind stops arguing with reality. Instead of asking why is this happening to me, a new question appears. How can I be present with what is happening now? This shift is how we transform your mind, not through discipline alone, but through understanding. The heart learns to bow to change instead of resisting it. In moments of chaos, when plans collapse or emotions feel overwhelming, impermanence becomes a refuge. Find peace in chaos does not mean pretending everything is fine. It means recognizing that chaos itself is not permanent. Even the most intense storm eventually passes. When anxiety tells you this feeling will never end, Buddhist reminders when you feel lost gently correct that story. This too is changing. This moment is already different from the last. Protect your energy by noticing how much of it is spent fighting what cannot be controlled. When you release the demand for permanence, energy naturally returns. You stop rehearsing worst-case scenarios. You stop replaying old conversations. Attention settles back into the body, into the simplicity of breath and sensation. From this grounded place, wise action becomes possible. Impermanence also teaches gratitude without clinging. When you know a moment will not last, you become more intimate with it. The warmth of sunlight through a window, the sound of laughter, the quiet satisfaction of completing a simple task. These experiences deepen when you stop trying to own them. Buddhist teachings remind us that appreciation grows when possession fades. As this understanding matures, fear gradually loosens its hold. Fear thrives on the illusion that we can secure a permanent future if we worry enough. Seeing impermanence exposes this illusion. You begin to trust not that life will go according to plan, but that you can meet whatever arises with awareness. This trust is calm. It is steady. It does not shout. Walking with impermanence is not a single insight but a daily practice. Each time something changes and you allow it without tightening, you are practicing freedom. Each time you notice loss without collapsing into despair, you are touching the heart of Buddhist wisdom. Over time, this practice reshapes how you relate to the world. Life remains unpredictable, but it no longer feels hostile. As this part closes, the invitation is simple and profound. Notice change today without judging it. Let it move through you like a passing breeze. In doing so, you are not becoming detached from life. You are learning to meet life directly, without armor, without illusion, and with a quiet courage that grows stronger each time you let go. There is a voice that speaks almost constantly, narrating your life even when no one is listening. It comments on success and failure, replays conversations long after they have ended, imagines futures that have not arrived, and judges moments before they are fully lived. This voice feels intimate, as if it were you, yet Buddhist teachings invite a quiet and radical question. What if this voice is not who you are, but something you can listen to without obeying? Ancient Buddhist wisdom describes the mind as a stream rather than a solid object. Thoughts arise, linger briefly, and dissolve, replaced by others. The problem is not that thoughts appear. The problem begins when we believe every thought without examination. Anxiety, self-doubt, and restlessness grow not from reality itself, but from the stories the mind tells about reality. Learning how to stay calm and positive begins with recognizing this difference. Imagine sitting by a river, watching leaves float past on the surface of the water. Each leaf carries a word, an image, a memory. Some are pleasant, some are painful. You do not need to jump into the river to understand what is happening. You can sit on the bank and observe. This simple image captures a central insight of Buddhism for beginners. You are the awareness watching the thoughts, not the thoughts themselves. In daily life, this practice becomes deeply practical. When a critical thought arises during work, saying you are not good enough or that you will fail, Buddhist lessons for anxiety do not ask you to replace it with forced positivity. Instead, they encourage you to notice the tone, the timing, the repetition of the thought. You begin to see that this voice has patterns. It often speaks in absolutes. It often predicts disaster without evidence. Seeing these habits weakens their authority. Find peace in chaos by understanding that chaos often lives in the mind before it appears in the world. A noisy room is not the same as a noisy mind. Two people can stand in the same situation, one overwhelmed, the other steady. The difference is not circumstance but relationship. When you stop arguing with your thoughts and start observing them, space opens. In that space, calm becomes possible even when life is loud. To live without fear, Buddhism does not promise that fearful thoughts will disappear. It shows you how fear loses its grip when it is seen clearly. Fear is often a projection, a mental image of loss or pain that has not yet occurred. When you recognize fear as a thought rather than a prophecy, it softens. You still act responsibly, but you are no longer driven by panic. Transform your mind by shifting from identification to awareness. This shift is subtle and takes patience. At first, you may notice thoughts only after they have already carried you away. Over time, awareness arrives earlier. You catch the thought as it forms. Eventually, there are moments when a thought arises and dissolves without pulling you with it. These moments are small awakenings hidden inside ordinary life. Protect your energy by choosing where attention rests. Attention is the fuel of thought. When you repeatedly give attention to worry, comparison, or resentment, those patterns strengthen. Buddhist teachings do not frame this as a moral failure but as a natural process. What you feed grows. When you gently redirect attention to the breath, to the body, or to simple presence, the mind learns new pathways. Many people feel lost because they mistake constant thinking for clarity. Buddhist reminders when you feel lost often point back to direct experience. Feel your feet on the ground. Notice the rise and fall of the chest. Listen to the sounds around you without labeling them. These acts interrupt the endless commentary and return you to what is real. Direction emerges not from thinking about life, but from being in it. The Buddha compared an untrained mind to a wild animal, restless and reactive. Training the mind is not about domination but friendship. You learn its habits, its fears, its preferences. When you approach the mind with curiosity rather than hostility, it begins to settle. Calm is not forced. It arrives naturally when resistance fades. Listening to the mind without becoming it also deepens compassion. When you see your own thoughts as passing events, you begin to recognize the same process in others. Harsh words from someone else are seen not as a personal attack but as the overflow of their own unexamined thoughts. This understanding softens judgment and opens space for patience. Over time, the relationship with the mind changes. Thoughts still arise, but they no longer dominate the landscape. Silence appears between them, not as emptiness, but as clarity. In this silence, there is a sense of being grounded, present, and quietly confident. Life continues with all its unpredictability, but it is no longer filtered entirely through mental noise. As this reflection unfolds, the practice is not to stop thinking, but to see thinking clearly. Each moment of awareness weakens the illusion that you are trapped inside your thoughts. You discover that beneath the constant narration, there is a steady presence that does not judge, rush, or fear. Resting in that presence is one of the most profound gifts offered by Buddhist wisdom, and it is available not in some distant future, but in the simple act of noticing, right now. Most of life is not lived where the body is. It is lived a few minutes ahead, rehearsing what might go wrong, or a few years behind, replaying what should have been different. The body sits at a table, walks down a street, lies awake at night, while the mind travels endlessly through imagined futures and remembered pasts. Ancient Buddhist teachings do not condemn this habit. They simply reveal its cost. When attention abandons the present moment, peace quietly slips away. Buddhist wisdom points to the present not as an idea, but as an experience. Right now, there is a sensation of breathing, a subtle pressure where the body meets the ground, a sound arising and fading. These simple facts are often overlooked because they seem ordinary. Yet it is precisely within this ordinariness that stability is found. When the mind rests here, even briefly, something softens. The nervous system begins to settle. The constant background tension eases. For those approaching Buddhism for beginners, the instruction to be present can sound deceptively simple. The difficulty is not understanding the words. It is noticing how often the mind resists staying here. The present moment does not offer the excitement of fantasy or the familiarity of memory. It offers reality as it is, incomplete, unfinished, alive. The mind often prefers control to truth, and control lives in thought, not in presence. How to stay calm and positive is not answered by changing circumstances, but by changing location. Not physical location, but attentional location. When attention returns to the present, worries about what might happen lose their immediacy. Regrets about what already happened lose their grip. This does not erase responsibility or planning. It simply places them in their proper context. Planning becomes an activity, not an identity. Remembering becomes a tool, not a prison. Find peace in chaos by noticing that chaos is rarely constant. It surges and fades. What feels overwhelming often comes in waves. The present moment, however, is always manageable. You can breathe this breath. You can feel this step. You can meet this single second. Buddhist lessons for anxiety often return to this truth. You do not have to survive your entire life at once. You only have to meet this moment with awareness. The Buddha spoke of mindfulness not as a technique, but as a way of relating. When washing your hands, know the feeling of water. When eating, taste fully. When walking, feel the movement of the body through space. These acts do not add anything to life. They reveal what is already there. Over time, this way of living transforms your mind by grounding it in reality rather than imagination. To live without fear does not mean eliminating uncertainty. It means learning to anchor attention somewhere stable. The future is uncertain by nature. The past is untouchable. The present, however, is always accessible. When fear arises, notice where attention has gone. It has likely left the body and entered a story. Returning to sensation interrupts the story without fighting it. Fear weakens when it is no longer fed by images and predictions. Protect your energy by understanding how much is lost through absent-mindedness. When attention is scattered, even pleasant experiences feel thin. When attention is gathered, even simple moments feel rich. Buddhist teachings remind us that energy follows attention. Where attention goes repeatedly becomes the shape of your life. Returning to the present is not a withdrawal from responsibility, but a way of meeting responsibility with clarity. Many people feel lost because they are rarely here. Buddhist reminders when you feel lost often sound almost too simple. Come back. Come back to the body. Come back to what is actually happening. In doing so, you may notice discomfort, boredom, or restlessness. These are not obstacles. They are gateways. Staying present with discomfort teaches patience. Staying present with boredom teaches depth. Staying present with restlessness teaches compassion. The present moment is not always peaceful. Sometimes it holds pain, grief, or confusion. Buddhist wisdom does not promise constant serenity. It promises honesty. When pain is met directly, without resistance or storytelling, it changes. It becomes sensation rather than suffering. Suffering arises when pain is combined with mental struggle. presence separates the two. Over time, returning to the present becomes less effortful. It becomes a natural reflex. You notice yourself drifting and gently come back, not with frustration, but with familiarity. This gentle return is the heart of practice. It is not about staying present forever, but about returning again and again. Each return strengthens awareness, like a muscle slowly growing through use. As this understanding deepens, life begins to feel less rushed. Time does not slow down, but experience becomes fuller. Moments are lived rather than skipped. Even challenges are met with more steadiness. You are no longer trying to escape the present to reach a better future. You are discovering that the depth you were seeking has been here all along, quietly waiting for attention. Returning to the present moment is not an escape from life. It is an entry into it. In this entry, Buddhist teachings reveal their most practical gift. You do not need to become someone new. You only need to be where you already are. When attention rests here, the ordinary becomes meaningful, the chaotic becomes workable, and life, just as it is, becomes a place where wisdom can grow. There is a quiet tension many people carry without naming it. It lives in the shoulders, the jaw, the chest. It comes from holding on too tightly to ideas of how life should be, how people should behave, how the self should be seen. Ancient Buddhist teachings speak to this tension not with force, but with gentleness. They describe letting go not as abandonment, but as wisdom. Letting go is not losing life. It is releasing the struggle against life. Buddhist wisdom makes a careful distinction between care and clinging. You can care deeply and still let go. You can love fully and still release control. Clinging begins when the mind believes that happiness depends on a specific outcome. When that belief takes hold, fear follows naturally. Fear of loss. Fear of change. Fear of uncertainty. Buddhist lessons for anxiety often begin here, at the place where attachment quietly tightens around the heart. Consider how often the mind replays a single moment, wishing it had gone differently. A conversation. A decision. A missed opportunity. The body is here, but the mind is gripping the past, trying to reshape what cannot be reshaped. Buddhism for beginners often encounters letting go as a relief. Not because the past no longer matters, but because it no longer needs to be carried. How to stay calm and positive becomes clearer when you see that calm is not something added, but something uncovered. Beneath the layers of grasping, there is already a natural ease. Letting go removes what blocks it. This does not mean suppressing emotions or pretending not to care. It means allowing emotions to move without building an identity around them. Find peace in chaos by noticing what you are demanding from the moment. Are you insisting that it be quieter, easier, more comfortable before you allow yourself to relax? Buddhist teachings gently suggest an alternative. Relax first. Let the moment be as it is. Peace does not wait for conditions to improve. It appears when resistance softens. To live without fear, the Buddha pointed again and again to non-attachment. Fear often arises not from what is happening, but from what might be taken away. Reputation. Security. Control. When you see clearly that everything conditioned is already changing, clinging loses its logic. This insight does not make life meaningless. It makes it precious. When you stop trying to possess moments, you actually experience them more fully. Transform your mind by observing where it refuses to release. It might cling to being right. It might cling to being needed. It might cling to an image of success or failure. Each attachment promises safety but delivers tension. Letting go is the courage to trust awareness itself, rather than the stories built around it. Protect your energy by noticing how much is drained by attachment. Worry is attachment to imagined futures. Regret is attachment to imagined pasts. Comparison is attachment to imagined versions of others. Buddhist reminders when you feel lost often return to this simple truth. Release what is not here. Energy returns naturally when attention is no longer scattered across illusions. Letting go also reshapes relationships. When you stop clinging to how someone should be, you begin to see who they actually are. Compassion grows. Conflict softens. This does not mean tolerating harm or abandoning boundaries. It means acting from clarity rather than fear. Boundaries set from awareness are firm without being aggressive. The Buddha compared attachment to holding a hot coal with the intention of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. Letting go is not a moral command. It is a practical one. When you release what hurts you, suffering diminishes. This is not theory. It is lived experience, available moment by moment. Many people worry that letting go means becoming passive or detached from life. Buddhist wisdom offers a different picture. When you let go of clinging, action becomes cleaner. Decisions arise from understanding rather than desperation. Effort becomes sustainable. You still care, but you are no longer consumed. As you practice letting go, you may notice resistance. The mind fears emptiness. It asks, who am I without my stories, my struggles, my identities? Buddhism does not answer this question with a new label. It invites you to rest in the not knowing. In that rest, something unexpected emerges. A sense of presence that does not depend on roles or outcomes. If this reflection resonates with you and you wish to continue walking this path of insight and calm, you are welcome to support daily Dharma listening by subscribing, liking, or sharing this space with others who may be seeking Buddhist wisdom in everyday life. These simple actions help keep this quiet refuge available for anyone who needs it. Letting go is not a single act. It is a way of living. Each time you notice clinging and soften your grip, you are practicing freedom. Life continues to change, but you meet it with open hands instead of clenched fists. In that openness, the heart discovers a strength that does not come from holding on, but from trusting the flow of experience itself. Compassion is often misunderstood as softness, as if it were a gentle feeling reserved for calm moments and kind people. Ancient Buddhist teachings speak of compassion very differently. They describe it as a strength that does not depend on circumstances, a steady orientation of the heart that remains even when life is difficult, even when people disappoint us, even when we disappoint ourselves. Compassion is not sentiment. It is clarity meeting pain without turning away. In modern life, it is easy to become hardened without noticing. News cycles overflow with conflict. Conversations are rushed and transactional. Inner dialogue becomes sharp, demanding, unforgiving. Buddhist wisdom does not scold this hardening. It explains it. When the mind is overwhelmed, it contracts. When it feels unsafe, it builds armor. Compassion begins when we recognize this contraction in ourselves and choose to soften, not because the world deserves it, but because we do. Buddhism for beginners often encounters compassion first as kindness toward others, yet the Buddha consistently returned to self-compassion as the foundation. When the inner voice is harsh, the outer world is seen through the same lens. Buddhist lessons for anxiety reveal that much suffering comes from fighting our own experience. The mind says you should not feel this way. The body tightens. Compassion says this is what is here right now. That simple recognition changes everything. How to stay calm and positive is not achieved by forcing optimism, but by meeting difficulty with warmth. When frustration arises at work, compassion notices the effort underneath the tension. When sadness appears, compassion recognizes loss without rushing to fix it. This does not make emotions stronger. It makes them workable. They move when they are allowed. Find peace in chaos by understanding that chaos often triggers fear of inadequacy. The mind whispers that you are not handling life well enough. Compassion responds not with argument, but with presence. You are here. You are breathing. You are doing what you can. This response grounds attention in reality rather than judgment. Calm grows from being on your own side. To live without fear does not mean being fearless. It means knowing that when fear arises, it will be met with care rather than criticism. Fear weakens when it is not shamed. Buddhist teachings emphasize that the heart trained in compassion becomes a safe place. When the mind knows it will not be attacked for feeling uncertain, it relaxes. Courage follows naturally. Transform your mind by noticing how compassion shifts perception. The same situation viewed through judgment feels heavy. Viewed through compassion, it feels human. A mistake becomes a teacher. A conflict becomes information. A failure becomes a moment of learning rather than a verdict on worth. This shift does not excuse harm. It contextualizes it, allowing wisdom to respond instead of reflex. Protect your energy by recognizing how much is lost through self-criticism. Harsh inner dialogue drains vitality and narrows attention. Compassion restores energy by reducing internal conflict. When the mind stops fighting itself, energy becomes available for creativity, connection, and meaningful action. Buddhist reminders when you feel lost often begin with this inward turning of kindness. Compassion also reshapes how we see others. When someone acts aggressively or dismissively, the habitual response is defense or counterattack. Buddhist wisdom invites another option. Notice the suffering behind the behavior. This does not mean tolerating harm or abandoning boundaries. It means responding without hatred. Boundaries set with compassion are clear and firm, not reactive. The Buddha described compassion as a boundless quality, not because it is naive, but because it is freeing. Hatred binds the one who holds it. Compassion releases both the giver and the receiver, even when the receiver never notices. In this way, compassion becomes a practice of freedom. You are no longer enslaved by resentment or bitterness. In daily life, compassion is practiced in small, almost invisible ways. Pausing before speaking. Softening the breath when tension appears. Allowing rest without guilt. Listening without preparing a response. These moments accumulate. Over time, they change the texture of experience. Life feels less like a battlefield and more like a shared human journey. There are days when compassion feels difficult. Exhaustion, grief, and anger can make the heart feel closed. Buddhist teachings do not demand perfection. They invite honesty. Even acknowledging the absence of compassion is a compassionate act. From that honesty, the heart begins to reopen, slowly, at its own pace. As this understanding deepens, compassion becomes less of an effort and more of a natural orientation. You stop asking whether someone deserves kindness and start recognizing suffering wherever it appears. This recognition does not weaken you. It stabilizes you. In a world that often rewards aggression and speed, compassion becomes a quiet form of rebellion. The strength of compassion lies in its steadiness. It does not require ideal conditions. It does not wait for others to change first. It begins here, in the way you meet this breath, this thought, this moment. In practicing compassion, Buddhist wisdom reveals one of its most practical truths. A heart that knows how to care is a heart that knows how to endure, adapt, and remain open, even in the midst of an imperfect world. Beneath the surface of everyday life, there is a quiet restlessness that rarely announces itself clearly. It appears as boredom even when everything seems fine, as longing without a clear object, as a sense that something is missing despite apparent success. Ancient Buddhist teachings name this restlessness not as a personal flaw, but as a universal condition. It is the feeling that life, as it is right now, should be something else. Buddhist wisdom does not condemn desire outright. It observes it carefully. Desire, in its simplest form, is movement toward what feels pleasant and away from what feels unpleasant. This movement is natural. The difficulty begins when desire hardens into expectation, when the mind insists that fulfillment must come from a particular outcome, possession, or experience. From that insistence, dissatisfaction quietly grows. Buddhism for beginners often encounters this insight with surprise. We are taught that desire motivates progress, that wanting more is how life improves. The Buddha did not deny this functional role of desire. He pointed instead to its hidden cost. When desire becomes the primary source of meaning, the present moment is never enough. Even achievement carries a subtle disappointment, because it does not last, and because the mind quickly moves on to the next want. How to stay calm and positive becomes difficult when the mind is constantly leaning forward, chasing satisfaction just beyond reach. Calm requires arriving. Yet desire is always arriving later. Buddhist teachings invite a pause in this forward momentum, not to suppress wanting, but to understand it. When you see desire clearly, it loosens its grip. Consider a simple example. You wait for a message from someone important to you. Minutes stretch. Each glance at the phone brings a small surge of hope followed by frustration. The message finally arrives, and for a moment there is relief. Soon after, the mind shifts again, perhaps to the tone of the message, or to what should happen next. Satisfaction is brief. This cycle repeats countless times in modern life, quietly shaping anxiety and restlessness. Buddhist lessons for anxiety often begin by tracing this cycle without judgment. Desire creates tension because it places fulfillment in the future. The present becomes a waiting room. When you recognize this pattern, you begin to experiment with a different approach. What happens if you feel the wanting directly, as sensation and energy, without immediately acting on it? Often, it rises, peaks, and falls on its own. Find peace in chaos by noticing how much chaos is generated internally by unexamined desire. The outer world may be noisy and unpredictable, but much of the distress comes from the mind insisting that it should be otherwise. When this insistence softens, the same circumstances feel more workable. Peace appears not because life conforms to preference, but because preference loosens. To live without fear is closely connected to understanding desire. Fear often arises from the possibility of not getting what we want, or of losing what we already have. When desire defines happiness, fear becomes inevitable. Buddhist wisdom points to a deeper stability, one that does not depend on acquisition. This stability grows when contentment is cultivated as a skill rather than awaited as a reward. Transform your mind by exploring contentment in small moments. Contentment is not resignation. It is a clear appreciation of what is present without comparison. Drinking water when thirsty. Resting when tired. Completing a task and allowing that completion to be enough, without immediately measuring it against future goals. These moments train the mind to recognize sufficiency. Protect your energy by noticing how desire fragments attention. When the mind is always reaching, it is rarely settled. Energy leaks through constant evaluation and comparison. Buddhist teachings remind us that energy returns when the mind rests in what is already here. This resting is not dull. It is quietly nourishing. Many people feel lost because they are driven by desires inherited from others. Cultural expectations, social comparisons, unexamined ambitions. Buddhist reminders when you feel lost often point inward. What do you actually need in this moment? Not what you should want, but what genuinely supports clarity and well-being. This question cuts through layers of conditioning. Desire also shapes identity. We begin to believe we are the one who must achieve, acquire, or prove. When desire is frustrated, identity feels threatened. Buddhist wisdom gently dismantles this structure by showing that identity itself is a process, not a possession. When you see this, failure loses some of its sting, and success loses some of its intoxication. As understanding deepens, desire does not disappear, but it becomes lighter. It informs action without dominating it. You still set goals, make plans, and care about outcomes, but you no longer stake your worth on them. Action arises from clarity rather than lack. This shift changes the emotional tone of life. Effort becomes cleaner. Rest becomes possible. Seeing the roots of desire is not a one-time insight. It is an ongoing practice of noticing when the mind leans forward and gently inviting it back. Each time you recognize dissatisfaction as a signal rather than a verdict, you grow in wisdom. Each time you allow a moment to be enough, you weaken the habit of endless wanting. In this seeing, Buddhist teachings offer a profound reassurance. You do not need to eliminate desire to find peace. You only need to understand it. When desire is seen clearly, it no longer dictates the terms of happiness. Life remains dynamic, imperfect, and changing, but it is no longer lived as a problem to be solved. It becomes an unfolding experience, met with awareness, balance, and a quiet sense of enough. Much of the unease in human life comes from a single, deeply ingrained habit. The mind wants certainty. It wants clear answers, predictable outcomes, and solid ground that will not shift beneath its feet. Ancient Buddhist teachings look directly at this habit and name it with surprising gentleness. The wish for certainty is understandable, but it is also the source of subtle and persistent suffering. Life, by its very nature, refuses to guarantee anything. Buddhist wisdom does not respond to uncertainty by offering better predictions or more refined beliefs. It responds by changing the relationship to not knowing. In Buddhism for beginners, this can feel unsettling at first. We are conditioned to believe that clarity comes from answers. Yet the Buddha pointed toward a deeper clarity that arises when the mind stops demanding conclusions and learns to remain present with questions. Consider how often anxiety is fueled by the sentence, "What if?" What if this goes wrong? What if I fail? What if I lose what matters to me? These thoughts are not about the present moment. They are attempts to secure an uncertain future by imagining it in advance. Buddhist lessons for anxiety invite a simple but radical shift. Notice that the future exists only as thought. The body is always here, now, breathing, standing, sitting, alive. How to stay calm and positive becomes possible when the mind no longer insists on certainty before allowing peace. Calm is not a reward for having answers. It is a capacity developed by learning to stay with experience as it unfolds. When uncertainty is met directly, without rushing to resolve it, it loses much of its threat. It becomes space rather than danger. Find peace in chaos by recognizing that chaos often feels unbearable because the mind believes it should already understand what is happening. Buddhist teachings gently undermine this belief. Understanding unfolds in time. Forcing it too early creates tension. When you allow confusion to be present without labeling it as failure, the nervous system relaxes. Insight arises naturally when pressure is removed. To live without fear does not require eliminating risk or ambiguity. It requires learning to trust awareness itself. Even when the path ahead is unclear, awareness remains steady. You can feel the ground under your feet even if you do not know where the road leads. This trust is not blind optimism. It is confidence in your capacity to meet experience moment by moment. Transform your mind by noticing how often it confuses certainty with safety. The mind tells itself that if it could just know what will happen, it could finally relax. Yet certainty is fragile. It can collapse with a single unexpected event. Buddhist wisdom points to a more durable refuge. Presence. Presence does not predict. It responds. Protect your energy by seeing how much is consumed by mental rehearsals of uncertain futures. Planning has its place, but worry disguised as planning drains vitality. When you notice the mind looping through possibilities without resolution, gently return attention to what is tangible. The sensation of breathing, the weight of the body, the sounds of the environment. These anchors do not eliminate uncertainty, but they prevent it from overwhelming the system. Many people feel lost because they believe they should already know who they are and where they are going. Buddhist reminders when you feel lost offer a different perspective. Not knowing is not a personal failure. It is an honest reflection of reality. Identity is not a fixed destination. It is a process that unfolds through experience. When you allow this process to remain open, curiosity replaces fear. The Buddha often used silence to point toward truth. Not because words are useless, but because some understanding emerges only when the mind stops filling every gap with explanation. Resting in uncertainty creates such gaps. In these spaces, intuition sharpens. Sensitivity deepens. You begin to notice subtle cues that were drowned out by constant mental noise. Uncertainty also softens judgment. When you admit that you do not fully know, you become less rigid with yourself and others. Opinions become provisional. Views become flexible. This flexibility is not weakness. It is intelligence adapting to complexity. In a world that changes faster than beliefs can keep up, this adaptability is a form of wisdom. As this practice deepens, uncertainty transforms from an enemy into a teacher. Each moment of not knowing becomes an invitation to be present. Each unanswered question becomes a doorway into deeper listening. Life feels less like a problem to solve and more like a reality to engage with attentively. Resting in uncertainty does not mean abandoning discernment or responsibility. It means releasing the demand for guarantees before acting. You still choose, still respond, still care. You simply do so without the illusion of control. This brings a surprising lightness. Decisions feel cleaner. Outcomes feel less personal. The heart remains open even when results are unclear. In this way, Buddhist teachings offer a profound reorientation. Freedom does not come from securing the future. It comes from meeting the present without armor. When you learn to rest in uncertainty, you discover a stability that does not depend on answers. You find that even without knowing what comes next, life is still livable, meaningful, and quietly rich. Patience is often mistaken for waiting with clenched teeth, for enduring discomfort while secretly hoping it will end soon. Ancient Buddhist teachings speak of patience in a very different way. They describe it as a form of wisdom, a deep understanding of time, change, and the limits of control. Patience is not passive. It is an active relationship with reality, one that allows life to unfold without constant resistance. In a world that moves quickly and rewards immediacy, impatience has become almost invisible. It hides behind efficiency, ambition, and urgency. Yet beneath these masks, impatience often carries tension and dissatisfaction. Buddhist wisdom invites a closer look. When impatience arises, what is really being threatened? Often, it is the mind's demand that life move according to preference rather than according to its own rhythm. Buddhism for beginners frequently encounters patience as a relief. There is a quiet permission in realizing that not everything must be resolved right now. The mind is accustomed to pushing, to forcing clarity, to rushing outcomes. Patience introduces a pause, not as delay, but as space. In that space, understanding matures. How to stay calm and positive becomes less mysterious when patience is seen clearly. Calm is not something you reach by speeding up. It emerges when the nervous system no longer feels chased by time. When you allow moments to be incomplete, when you stop demanding immediate closure, the body relaxes. Breathing deepens. Thoughts slow. Consider how impatience shows up in everyday life. Standing in line. Waiting for a response. Learning a new skill. Healing from emotional pain. In each case, impatience whispers that something is wrong with the present moment. Buddhist teachings gently challenge this assumption. Nothing is wrong. This is simply how this moment is unfolding. Find peace in chaos by recognizing that chaos often feels overwhelming because the mind wants it to resolve faster than it can. Patience does not deny difficulty. It changes how difficulty is held. When you stop fighting the pace of events, you free energy that was locked in resistance. That energy becomes available for clarity and care. Buddhist lessons for anxiety often return to patience as medicine. Anxiety accelerates time. It projects the mind into futures that feel urgent and threatening. Patience slows time back down to what is manageable. You breathe this breath. You take this step. You meet this feeling. In doing so, anxiety loses its momentum. To live without fear is closely tied to patience. Fear often demands immediate certainty and immediate relief. When relief does not arrive, fear intensifies. Buddhist wisdom teaches that patience allows fear to rise and fall without feeding it. You learn that you can stay present even when comfort is delayed. This learning builds confidence in your own resilience. Transform your mind by noticing impatience without judgment. The moment you see impatience clearly, it begins to soften. You recognize its familiar texture, its tightness, its urgency. Instead of obeying it, you listen. Often, beneath impatience is fatigue, vulnerability, or longing. Patience meets these layers with kindness rather than force. Protect your energy by understanding how impatience drains it. Rushing does not always lead to efficiency. Often, it leads to mistakes, burnout, and shallow engagement. When you slow down internally, even while acting externally, energy becomes steadier. Buddhist teachings remind us that sustainable effort grows from balance, not pressure. Many people feel lost because they believe they are behind, late, or failing to keep up. Buddhist reminders: when you feel lost, gently question this narrative. Behind according to whom? Late compared to what timeline? Life does not move on a single schedule. Each path unfolds according to countless conditions. Patience allows you to honor your own timing without comparison. The Buddha spoke of patience as the highest form of austerity, not because it is harsh, but because it requires deep trust. Trust that understanding will come. Trust that change is happening even when it is not visible. Trust that you do not need to force every outcome. This trust is not blind. It is grounded in careful observation of how life actually unfolds. Patience also deepens compassion. When you allow yourself time to grow, to learn, to heal, you naturally extend the same allowance to others. Judgment softens. Expectations become more realistic. Relationships gain room to breathe. Conflict de-escalates when patience replaces urgency. Over time, patience becomes an inner refuge. It is something you carry with you, independent of circumstances. When plans fall apart, patience steadies you. When progress feels slow, patience reminds you that growth is rarely linear. When emotions linger longer than expected, patience allows them to complete their cycle. This refuge does not make life dull or inactive. On the contrary, it sharpens engagement. Actions taken from patience are more precise, more thoughtful, more aligned. You act when action is needed and wait when waiting is wise. This discernment is a hallmark of Buddhist wisdom applied in everyday life. Cultivating patience is not about becoming someone else. It is about remembering how life naturally moves when not pushed or pulled. Rivers do not rush, yet they reach the sea. Seasons do not hurry, yet they transform the world. When you align with this rhythm, impatience gradually loosens its grip. In this alignment, you discover that patience is not something you add to life. It is something you uncover when you stop interfering with the present moment. As patience grows, calm deepens, fear softens, and the mind finds rest not in resolution, but in trust. Suffering is often treated as an enemy, something to avoid, deny, or escape as quickly as possible. Modern life offers countless distractions designed for this purpose. Yet despite these efforts, suffering continues to surface in quiet and persistent ways. Ancient Buddhist teachings do not ask us to accept suffering passively, nor do they promise to eliminate it through belief alone. They offer a different approach. They teach us how to meet suffering with wisdom, so that it no longer controls the shape of our lives. Buddhist wisdom begins with an honest recognition. Pain is part of being human. Bodies age, relationships change, expectations collapse, and loss arrives without permission. What turns pain into suffering is not the experience itself, but the resistance layered on top of it. The mind says this should not be happening, or this should have ended by now. In this struggle against reality, tension multiplies. For those exploring Buddhism for beginners, this insight can feel both confronting and relieving. Confronting, because it removes the fantasy of a life without pain. Relieving, because it reveals a path that does not depend on perfect conditions. Buddhist lessons for anxiety often begin here. Anxiety is not only fear of pain, but fear of feeling pain. When you learn that pain can be met without collapse, anxiety loses much of its power. How to stay calm and positive in the midst of difficulty is not a matter of positive thinking. It is a matter of honest contact. When sadness arises, feel its texture in the body. When disappointment appears, notice its weight without turning it into a story about failure. This direct contact transforms your mind by interrupting the cycle of avoidance and escalation. Find peace in chaos by seeing that chaos often contains layers of resistance. Events unfold rapidly, emotions surge, and the mind reacts by tightening. Buddha's teachings invite a different response. Pause. Breathe. Allow the experience to be present without immediately trying to solve it. This pause does not make problems disappear, but it prevents them from overwhelming the system. To live without fear does not mean living without pain. It means knowing that pain, when met with awareness, does not destroy you. The Buddha compared untrained reactions to being struck by two arrows. The first arrow is the unavoidable pain of life. The second arrow is the mental resistance, the self-blame, the panic. Wisdom removes the second arrow. Pain may remain, but suffering decreases dramatically. Protect your energy by noticing how much is lost through fighting what is already here. Resistance consumes enormous mental and emotional resources. When you stop arguing with reality, energy returns. This energy can then be used for healing, understanding, and wise action. Buddhist reminders when you feel lost often point back to this simple shift. Stop fighting. Start seeing. Transform your mind by changing how you relate to difficulty. Instead of asking, "How do I get rid of this?" ask, "What is this asking of me?" This question opens curiosity rather than conflict. It allows suffering to become a teacher rather than a threat. Over time, this approach builds resilience that is not rigid, but flexible and responsive. Suffering also reveals where attachment still operates. Pain intensifies when it threatens something the mind clings to, an identity, an expectation, an image of control. Buddhist wisdom does not ask you to abandon meaning or care. It asks you to notice where clinging adds unnecessary weight. Each insight lightens the load. Compassion naturally arises when suffering is met wisely. When you stop condemning your own pain, you become less likely to judge the pain of others. This shared humanity softens isolation. Even in difficulty, connection becomes possible. Buddhist teachings remind us that wisdom and compassion are not separate paths. They grow together. There are moments when suffering feels overwhelming, when clarity seems distant. In these moments, wisdom does not demand insight. It asks for presence. Stay with the breath. Stay with the body. Stay with what is real. This staying is not resignation. It is courage. It is the willingness to remain open when closing would feel easier. If this reflection speaks to something in your own life, you are invited to continue this journey with daily Dharma listening by subscribing, liking, or sharing this space with others who may be seeking calm, clarity, and Buddhist wisdom in everyday life. These gestures help sustain a place where ancient teachings can quietly support modern hearts. Meeting suffering with wisdom does not remove difficulty from life. It changes the quality of engagement. Life becomes less about avoiding pain and more about responding to it skillfully. In this response, fear softens, calm deepens, and a quiet confidence emerges. You discover that even in the presence of suffering, there is space for dignity, understanding, and a steady sense of being alive. As this reflection comes to rest, what remains is not an answer, but a way of standing in the world. When suffering is no longer treated as a personal failure or an interruption to life, it becomes integrated into the path itself. You begin to sense that difficulty does not appear to punish you, but to reveal where understanding is still growing. Each moment of pain carries information, not as a concept, but as a lived experience shaping awareness. Wisdom, in the Buddhist sense, is not something abstract or distant. It is the intimacy of meeting life without turning away. When sorrow arises, wisdom listens. When anger appears, wisdom notices its heat without becoming it. When fear tightens the body, wisdom stays present long enough for the grip to loosen. This staying is not dramatic. It is quiet, steady, and deeply human. Over time, a subtle trust develops. Not trust that life will always be kind, but trust that whatever arises can be met. This trust changes the nervous system. The body no longer braces constantly for impact. The mind no longer scans endlessly for threats. Even when uncertainty remains, there is a sense of ground beneath the feet. This ground is awareness itself. You may notice that suffering, when met with wisdom, no longer isolates you in the same way. It becomes a bridge rather than a wall. You recognize the same struggles reflected in others. Their impatience, their fear, their confusion no longer feel foreign. Compassion deepens, not as an obligation, but as a natural response to shared vulnerability. In this way, suffering refines perception. It strips away superficial concerns and reveals what truly matters. Simplicity gains value. Presence feels precious. Moments once overlooked become meaningful. Life is no longer measured only by comfort or success, but by depth of engagement and clarity of heart. The end of resistance does not mean the end of pain, but it does mean the end of unnecessary struggle. Energy once spent on denial and avoidance returns as steadiness. Choices become less reactive. Even silence begins to feel supportive rather than empty. The mind rests more easily, not because everything is resolved, but because it is no longer at war with itself. As this part settles, what remains is a quiet orientation. When difficulty arises again, and it will, there is another way to meet it. Not by escaping, fixing, or explaining, but by staying present, curious, and open. In that openness, Buddhist wisdom reveals its most enduring truth. Peace is not found beyond suffering. It is found in the way suffering is understood, met, and allowed to transform into insight.